You've done the work. You researched the company, prepared your stories, showed up well, answered the questions thoughtfully. And the interview ended with a handshake or we'll be in touch. And then you went home and did nothing, just hoping for the best. That's how most people handle follow up after an interview. And it's a missed opportunity. An opportunity missed that quietly costs people jobs, relationships, and momentum in their search. A former student of mine had identified a company she genuinely wanted to work for. She had researched it carefully, liked its values, and believed it offered the kind of long term growth she was looking for. When a suitable position opened, she applied, even though she was still completing college and could only work part time. Her interviews went well, and she made it to the final stages. But she didn't get the job. The company explained that another candidate had similar qualifications and greater availability. She was disappointed, but she didn't let the rejection become the end of the relationship. She wrote back, thanked them for considering her, and reminded them of the strengths they had repeatedly commented on during her interviews. She then added that she hoped that they would consider her again once she had graduated and was available full time. More than a year later, another position opened. She applied again and mentioned that she had been previously shortlisted for a different position when she was only available part time, and that her availability had now changed. They remembered her. Because she had left such a professional final impression, she was able to move quickly through the hiring process. After one meeting with the final decision maker, she was offered the job, and so began a promising career that she'd been working towards all along. Her follow up didn't reverse the first decision, it did something far more valuable. It kept the door open. Today, we're talking about follow up strategy, what it actually is, why it's more important than most people realize, and how to do it in a way that adds value instead of just adding noise. Most people think of follow up as a thank you note, something that they send 24 hours after an interview so you don't seem rude. And that's not wrong, but it's the smallest part of what a real follow up strategy looks like. Follow up strategy is a deliberate approach to staying visible, building relationships, and keeping momentum in your search, not just after individual interviews, but throughout the entire search process. It includes what you do after interviews, after informational conversations, after networking events, and after a silence that's gone on a little longer than expected. Here's a core idea: every professional interaction creates an opening. How you use that opening, or whether you use it at all, determines whether you're building real relationships and real momentum, or just collecting conversations that go nowhere. Hiring decisions rarely happen in a single moment. There's usually a conversation, and then time, and then another conversation, and then a decision. And during the time, the people making the decision are forming impressions. And absence is an impression too. Candidates who don't follow up often come across as less interested or less engaged than those who do, even when that's not true. Follow up also matters in networking, which is where a lot of jobs come from. A meaningful first conversation that gets no follow up usually just dissolves. People are busy. They're not going to think about you unless you give them a reason to. So a well followed up, timed follow up turns a single conversation into a professional relationship. And on a purely practical level, sometimes things go quiet because of internal delays, changing priorities, or the hiring process being a little slower than anyone expected. A professional, well placed follow up can get you a status update when a silence would have left you waiting indefinitely. As usual, here are three things most people do that undermine their efforts. The first is a generic thank you. Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. Fine, but forgettable. A strong follow up is a specific reference to the something that actually happened during the conversation. It adds a thought or a resource and reminds them of why you're a good fit. Takes 5 minutes more, but it's 10 times more memorable. The second trap is the one and done. You send a thank you note, then you wait. But follow up isn't a single act, it's an ongoing practice. It means staying visible without being annoying, which requires judgment about timing, frequency, and what you're actually adding. The third trap is giving up too soon. Most people stop following up after one or two attempts with no response. But hiring is slow. Inboxes are full, timing matters. A follow up that arrives exactly the moment they're reconsidering can change an outcome. Persistence, done thoughtfully, is not annoying, it's professional. Here are four elements of follow up that actually work. Be specific. Reference something from the real conversation. You mentioned the team is working through a major platform migration. I've been thinking about what you said, and I want to share an article I found this week that addresses exactly the challenge you described. Now that's memorable. That's a relationship builder. Be timely. After an interview within 24 hours, after a networking conversation within 48, after a silence 3 to 5 business days before following up again, timing signals engagement and professionalism. And add value, not just presence. The best follow ups don't just say, I'm still interested. They give the reader something, a thought, a resource, a question, a connection they might find useful. Value adding follow up is welcome. Reminder only follow up is more like noise. Finally, keep a simple tracking system, even a basic spreadsheet, company, contact, date of last contact, what you sent, what the next step is. Without it, follow up gets inconsistent and you either let things drop or accidentally overreach. So, what's next? Just remember the interview doesn't end when you walk out the door. What you do afterwards is part of the interview, too. And unfortunately, many people leave that part completely to chance. As you may already know if you've been following this blog, we provide a sequence of opportunities to explore each week's topic in more depth. This week's deep dive post on Tuesday goes into the full follow up framework: when, what, and how often for different stages of your job search. On Wednesday, we meet in person on Zoom in the Pathfinder Campus Community Meeting Room to share our experiences and stories and to learn from each other. The meetings are open to everyone, and you're welcome to attend. We'd love to meet you and get to know you and share stories with you. The practical exercise on Thursday allows you to walk through building a simple follow up tracking system you can use starting today. And the reflection piece on Saturday is about what it means to stay engaged in a search that's taking longer than expected, which for most people, it's a bit of the hard part. You've put in the work that's needed to get the conversation. Make sure that work doesn't go to waste by what you do or don't do next. We look forward to meeting you and hope that you will join us on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Time in the Zoom community meeting room at pathfindercampus.ca.